All the second stage tanks now pressurized. Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Like a furry torpedo to the jugular. This is Honey Badger Radio. Radio with bite.
Hello and welcome to HBR Talk 402, the Incel Trip. Are we there yet? I'm your host, Hannah Wallen, here with Nonsense Annihilator, Lauren Brooks.
Hey.
The personification of perceptivity, Mike Stevenson.
Jello.
Richard the Lionhearted.
Hello.
And we have the Doge in charge, Brian Martinez, working in the background to make everything happen. But before we get into everything, we got to do what we got to do. As always, Honey Badger Radio dishes out a smorgasbord of thought-provoking discussions. And as experiences both recent and long past have demonstrated to us, the provoked thoughts are fighting back. They've made it clear that for people like us relying on third-party payment platforms like Patreon to fund our work is treading on thin ice, or building our house in the path of a rapidly growing wildfire. In light of this, we strongly encourage our supporters to switch at least their support for us to feedthebadger.com, the most stable way to help us out. And if you want to tip us directly instead of relying on any social media platforms tip jar, the link for that is feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And as always, the same risk applies to our social media platforms, which is why you should further provoke the thought police by tracking our thought-provoking discussions on honeybadgerbrigade.com, where you can find your way to all of our content, as well as a link to feedthebadger.com in the drop-down menu at the top of the page. And before we get into the article, there is something that I'm going to talk about simply because it just struck me today. There's a lot of different ways that we've talked about politics, the two-party system in the United States, meaning not that there's not other parties, but that the two parties pretty much win everything all the time, except for a few minor seats in different places. And so politics in the U.S. really is mostly a battle between Democrats and Republicans. And the men's rights spectrum of political issues doesn't specifically fall into one camp or the other, in that both camps right now are gynocentric. And we've been talking about that, like we've talked about that a lot. But something that I've kind of realized today, when you talk to Democrats right now online, most of the time, they don't have any reason to listen to you. They don't care. They don't want to hear about our issues. They don't. Once in a blue moon, they'll already be on your side if you're talking about don't shit on people for being trans, or don't shit on men for being gay. But when it comes to men's right to have custody of their children, men's right to due process, they're divided based on race, or based on things like, well, are those men gay? Then we should give them custody. But if they're not gay, they don't have enough victim points, and then we should not. So you end up with very little ability to get anything done by talking to Democrat politicians, Democrat activists, any of that, because they're not sympathetic to men. They're sympathetic to progressive stack victim points. Now, on the Republican side, you have this divide that has just happened. Like, it's fractured. The party is as fractured right now, in some ways, as the Democrat Party had been in 2016. And because of that, there are ways in which that party is somewhat ripe for the taking by men's rights activists. It's not currently suitable, as it stands, as a vehicle for getting people to understand men's issues necessarily. It's still very gynocentric right now. The whole party, not just the old school GOP conservative old guard. They're extremely gynocentric, but MAGA is very gynocentric too in a lot of ways. Although they have been schooled on due process because of what happened with Trump, because of what happened with Supreme Court Judge. Now why can't I think of his name? Starts with a K. Anyway, all of that had schooled MAGA on the importance of due process. But they still don't quite get it when it comes to men who are accused of intimate partner and sexual violence who aren't famous or part of... Yeah, Kavanaugh, thank you, Mr. 303. Who aren't famous, who aren't part of the elite of the party, who aren't people who can do something for them. If it's you, they're still not quite getting it. And if it's somebody from the other party, they're still willing to wield false allegations or unverified, unvetted allegations as a weapon. But that's largely because I think a lot of people in the men's rights movement don't get involved in party politics at all. And I genuinely think that if young men were to, en masse, start moving toward taking control of one party, they could do it if they focused on the Republican Party. If young men in the men's rights movement wanted to change the direction that a party is moving, that's the party they can affect right now. And the reason I say this is because they are the ones that right now there's a new guard replacing the old guard. Young blood is coming in, and they are openly turning over as a party from previously being just about tradition and just about the old ways of doing things, whether they were tradition or not, to looking more towards civil rights, looking more towards smaller government, and looking more toward reforming some of the really egregious due process violations that have been written into law and policy in the past. So it's not so much that I think the Republicans are a men's rights party, as I think that if you want to have success in getting through the American political system to actually change law and policy, it's going to be easier to knock the gynocentrism out of the Republican Party than it is to knock the gynocentrism out of the Democrat Party. And the one thing that probably would have to be put on a back burner is the fight over bathrooms. And we are fully aware that before women started complaining about trans women in women's bathrooms, women spent decades fighting to get into every space that men have. And women have spent decades invading men's bathrooms, men's locker rooms, right? Men's clubs, men's organizations, men's sheds are even getting invaded. We're aware of that. But right now, probably the biggest and most important two battles that the movement has are preventing the state from separating children from their fathers and preventing the state from taking away due process rights from the average individual. And if you want to win those two battles, you can't be divided by the battle over the bathrooms. And it's just not going to work. If you're so busy fighting over the bathrooms that you neglect the battles over due process rights and family rights, family unity and stuff, you're going to find that you lose all of the battles, especially in dealing with the old guard of both parties. You're not going to get sympathy from the Democrats, and you're not going to get sympathy from the Republicans. So the best option that I see strategically, right, not so much, it's not going to feel good as an option, but strategically, really the best option is to go in and take that party away from the gynocentrists and make it ours. Seems like a big job, but it's very possible. And it's much more likely to win when you're talking about who's going to be president, who's going to be legislators, who's going to be judges, who's going to determine whether the judicial system uses feminist jurisprudence, who's going to decide what kind of laws stay in place and which ones get repealed, what new laws passed, and so on. It's very much going to be necessary to have a political party that you can get candidates into that when they get into office can affect these things, than to spend the rest of our lives as a movement going, well, we can't get anything done because both parties are against us. It's futile. Sorry, guys. These things are all bad and wrong, and we're stuck, but there's nothing we can do about it. No, just storm the gates and start changing the way people think from the inside. Make it ours rather than not being able to get anything done because it's not. Right? That's the only way. So I'm talking about getting aggressive, not violently aggressive, but politically aggressive. Right? And it is going to be difficult. It's not something I'm going to say, well, in 5 minutes we could just take over the Republican Party. No, that won't happen. But in the future, as we work at actually getting shit done, we're much more likely to succeed if we do our own long march through that institution than we are if we try to fight with both parties forever or start our own. It's really not going to happen if we try to start our own. So that's what needs to happen, guys. There needs to be a divide and conquer attitude. Let the old guard go. Get rid of the old blood, bring in the new blood, and be the new blood that's influencing how the party changes. But it's only going to work with that one, because the other one is going to hate you for being male because of where you stand in the progressive stack, which is always as a lower level victim or a higher level oppressor than the women of your position in that stack. So
Yeah,
that's my take on it.
I like the idea. I would like to see more new blood coming in to these parties. The most promising one that I'm seeing right now is Spencer Pratt, and maybe we have to start at the state level and not, think about, trying to win over whoever's going to be in the Oval Office. Obviously, that is a long haul, but I really like Spencer Pratt. I think he is a candidate that would probably be more susceptible to men's rights issues. I like him because you don't know where he stands on Trump. You don't know how he feels about Iran. a lot of things. You just don't know where he falls. But what he does do, he's not someone that's trying to tear things down. He's trying to point out what's going wrong and say, this is what I'm going to do different. And I don't know, I'm just very hopeful for him. I think yes, it is a long road to hoe, but there is promise here. And if we can just get everybody on the same page, and the whole bathroom thing, you're right, it's just a losing argument. I'm so sick and tired of hearing about the bathroom argument. There's always going to be some father who's overzealous about who's around his young daughter, and with good intent. Like, I get that, right? But it's just not. It's not winning anybody over. People can see the legitimacy of the argument. However, what are we doing? Like, you're arguing about bathrooms. It's time to move on and move forward. Yes, I think that's something that should still be, it's not something that we should just shove off of the table. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater type of situation. But, men's rights issues extend far beyond who's using which bathroom. So yeah, I'm with you on that.
Thanks. I think that it's kind of our only pathway at this point. Like, we aren't going to get anywhere with both parties being against us, and we're not going to persuade the Democrats. Like, that's just not going to happen. No. And we're not really going to persuade the Republican Party as it stands either. We would have to get involved and not just start talking to people, but start being the party. Meaning that, there need to be enough people who are men's rights oriented or men's issues sympathetic, whatever you want to call yourself, people who are interested in ensuring that families aren't being broken up by the state, that families, that women aren't being encouraged and incentivized to divorce with financial incentives. Like, people who want to see, the court system, the legal system change so that you have to actually be guilty of a crime to be found guilty of a crime and go to jail, because evidence matters in the court system, things like that. More people with those as their main goals in their political activism need to start registering, going to the primaries, voting based on how candidates address those types of issues, getting involved in local, like, Republican events, not clubs, but organizations. And even, if you're the type of person that does canvassing or other door-to-door activities, works in a county fair booth, things like that, being involved and having the ear of the guy down the street who's going to run for city council is a lot bigger than people think it really is. Because if you get that guy's ear, he's got the ear of the county commissioner, who has the ear of your local representative at the state level, who has the ear of the governor and the senator at your state level, and the senator and representative at the national level, and so on. Right? That is the one thing that we haven't been doing for probably the last, 100 years, honestly, of men's rights activism. We haven't been doing that. And I think if the movement was doing that, it would make an immense difference. It wouldn't happen instantly, but it would happen. And that would be one way. we could get things changed. We would get the family courts changed. We would get family law changed. We would get the intimate partner and sexual violence conundrum solved. And I really do believe that we could get due process rights restored as well. So, but that's where I stand on it. For me, it's a realism thing. We'll never get this from the Democrat Party, ever, and we'll never get it without changing the Republican Party from what it is today to what it should be. But we really aren't going to be able to change the Democrat Party. We have a chance to change the Republican Party. We should do it.
Gender politics, right, is simultaneously the most and least important subject. It's fundamental to how human beings operate at the sort of family level. But it tapers to the vanishing point when it comes to politics. Like the broader problem of politics. The problem Hannah is alluding to in this presentation is the problem of a two-party system. And that's really important because it's when democracy is at its most corruptible. If there are only two parties to be bribed, well, that's peanuts. And once you're at that point, then everything can be pushed in a certain direction. And in this case, it is the gynocentric direction. And I'd like to give you a white pill from the British direction that we have escaped from the two-party system, or it looks like we are escaping from the two-party system of red and blue. Although our red is your blue, and but we've reform has been created as a protest vote, basically. And we're using it to sort of do the equivalent of get rid of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. It's hard to imagine an analog of that in the United States. We're not even talking independent or libertarian. We have those here too. But imagine if a party came out of somewhere that was none of these things, that was only a few years old, that sort of said, if you want to have a vote and you're completely fucking sick of the Democrats and the Republicans, here's a party you can vote for. I mean, imagine if you had that option, and a good third of the electorate was voting for it. You'd be like, yes, yes, yes. Because in a two-party system, people are screaming out for an alternative to the two-party system, because it's even worse than monarchy, because they lose all sense of accountability every 4 years. Do you see? And I would say it's harder for Americans to accomplish this than it has been for people in the UK to accomplish this. I mean, it looks like it, because now we have like 5 or 6 different parties that we can vote for. One of them is right wing, one of them is centrist. All the others are like various disguised flavors of leftist. But at least we've created a wide range of possibilities. This isn't looking likely in the United States of America anytime soon. It's still very much a two-party system. Like, independents and libertarians never win. Like, it's to the point of negligible, as one would read it on the side of a breakfast cereal packet. and so on. But y'all are only on a different stone on that path. You just have to zero seats a certain party, and that is inform the general public that they have been nothing but a failure for every step of their being. We were able to do this with the Labour Party over the last 2 years, but we were even able to do it with the Conservative Party over the few years before that. And the Conservative Party is the oldest political party in the world. We were somehow able to inject some skepticism into its machinations using the Reform Party, which is now becoming Tories 2.0, and that's a whole other fucking kettle of fish. But we're such a multi-party system at this point that we can even send in the shuttle of Restore to even get on ahead of the Reform Party. It might not. It might work. It might not. But the same model could be enacted in the USA. If you can really have the freedom of speech to really let people know what the Democrat Party has done over the years, the decades, the centuries. I mean, you all know what I'm talking about. They did the fucking slavery. They did the fucking reverse slavery that we're going through now. And all the shit in between. If you can actually if you can really get the truth across. I mean, if America really knew the truth for one fucking day, the Democrat Party would cease to exist and it would never come back. I'm sorry if you jizzed in your pants from what I just said, America, but it has to be done, and it's happening in the UK. We are getting rid of the Labour Party. We are even getting rid of the Conservatives, and you can do that in the USA. You can not only can you get rid of the Democrat Party, but the very next election cycle you can get rid of the Republican Party as well.
Very much so.
That's multiple orgasms now, isn't it? Isn't it?
In a word, like if I thought it would work, I would be saying this about the Libertarian Party. But the Libertarian Party has sort of cut its own feet off, and it's not going to work. But or starting a men's rights party like there was in the UK for a while. But I don't think that would be. I don't think we'd have the numbers that we would need. So
what I didn't mention is you will need something to replace the Democrat Party when you destroy it, and it's going to have to be a party further to the right than the Republican Party, because that's analogous to what's going on in the UK. We're pushing out the most left-wing parties and replacing them on the other side of the spectrum with right-wing parties, because the Republican Party isn't America first; it's Israel first. I mean, good luck anyone trying to tell me it's not.
The sad part of that is it's one of the things that the split isn't divided on either, right?
Yeah.
And the Democrat Party, they're split on it, but the power centers in the Democrat Party are Israel first. So we have a two-party system that's a one-party system anywhere that Israel is concerned. And none of the other parties can get enough numbers up to win anything. And now we could have had a chance with the Libertarian Party before Ross Perot. Ross Perot single-handedly took away other parties' chances for a whole generation of voters. because of what he did. And I don't know if the younger people understand this, but during the, I believe it was the Bush Senior and Bill Clinton election, that he got popular enough that it looked like he might possibly win the presidency. It'd be, it would have been a first. I don't think we've ever had a libertarian candidate have that much of a chance before. And not much less win, but not even have that much of a chance before. And when it looked like he had that much of a chance, he dropped out of the race, like real sudden like. And we don't know if he dropped out because he was changing his mind about what he was going to do, or if he was forced out. We don't know what happened behind the scenes. But then when it looked like Bush might win, then he re-entered the race. And he still got a lot of votes. But what he basically did was divide the Republican vote, and Clinton won. That's pretty much how Clinton won, because he didn't get a majority vote. He just got more votes than Bush and more votes than Perot. Perot killed his chances at winning when he did that. And ever since then, Gen X hasn't trusted third-party candidates. Now, maybe the millennial generation and the Zoomer generation have a chance at creating a third party or taking over a third party and getting enough votes out there after Gen X ages out of voting. But in my opinion, we don't have that opportunity. I think there's a lot of Gen Xers who are afraid to jump off of that high dive a second time. But yeah, I honestly, at this point, I think our best bet, because of the Republican fracturing, is to use that to our advantage. Sometimes you just have to be socially strategic, says the autistic gal. But when you see a divide like that, it is, and I haven't been able to do that in life for most of my life, but now that I've started examining this stuff, I can see it more in a almost like a gamified strategic kind of thing. If you see a divide, if you jump in there and start pushing, your ideas, you can kind of get rid of some of the bad ideas, especially the old gynocentric traditional ideas. And I think that we have a chance, but it would require a lot of heavy lifting, and this is something that men would have to take charge of and do. Like women like me, we can describe these ideas, but direction and the heavy lifting, it is going to end up having to be men, because otherwise you'll end up with another gynocentric Republican Party. Women will never be able to lead a charge like that without veering off into the gynocentric weeds. It'll never happen that way. But that's my suggestion. Anyway, we can get into the article. It's just something that it struck me today, and it's something I think that the men's rights movement needed to hear. And I figured I'd start here, because here is a platform I have some control over. But so last time we stopped, I believe, like somewhere in here. I had it highlighted and I accidentally unhighlighted it. I touched my keyboard, was a mistake. Ended up having windows pop up that I wasn't trying to look at and everything. So while I was talking, I was trying to close things. But in any case, we'll pick it right up here. Dan finished school last year. I believe we read this paragraph was our last paragraph we read last week. Dan finished school last year, where he was, he says, an IT nerd who wasn't popular. IT guys were generally pretty lonely. We just talk to ourselves, stick to ourselves. But even when I did try and go out and talk to people, I did usually get rejected. He's continued in this vein. He now works in IT services and lives alone. He has rather strict opinions about female apparel. He doesn't like makeup and fake stuff. I'm wearing makeup. It's not excessive, he says, embarrassed. Dan says his dating life is terrible. He sighs. Men like me can't get anything. And I know we read this because I remember remarking about how, like, she embarrassed him. I'm wearing makeup. Guy has a right to his preferences, guys. If he doesn't like it, just because you're doing it doesn't mean that he has to be embarrassed for not liking it. So here's where we would pick up then. Most girls my age, right? They look for those hard nuts, those roadmen, those people who don't respect the other gender. Guys who just want some hot chick, tits out, really tight shorts and stuff like that. Always in a bikini. Dan sees women like this all the time, he says. He shakes his head. It's like whore, dirty whore. I think we read this part too. The words uttered in his mild, disapproving voice hang in the air. And again, like he has every right to his opinions. This isn't something that we being women are entitled to control. Just like men don't get to control which men women like. Women don't get to control which women men like. That should be a no-brainer, right? That should not even be controversial. But men don't get to complain if women bitch about which women men like. And they don't get to complain if women bitch about the men they don't like. So creep shaming never caught on as a term outside the men's rights movement. But slut shaming has caught on not just among, feminists and woke ideologues and so on, but even tradcons will use that term. Even people who profess to live by the Bible and believe in conservative values and have a moralistic attitude towards sex and sexuality will still use the term slut shaming. And they'll still treat the term creep shaming like it is a not real term. Because women are allowed to have standards while bitching about the opposite sex's standards. And men are allowed neither.
Which is crazy if you think about it, because how many times have you heard women, get together and sit there and bitch and complain about this whore that they know, or this whore did this or that? It's okay when women complain about other women, but men can't do it. Just, ladies, can we have some standards besides double standards?
Yeah, I mean, women can get mad at other women, write an entire song about how you a stupid hoe, and it becomes popular.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Men now, a man will write a sarcastic diatribe against being treated like a creep, and it'll become popular. But it has to be couched in so much sarcasm that most of the people listening to it don't understand what it means.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whereas, women can just bluntly say it. You stupid hoe. And of course, it's popular. It becomes almost an anthem. Like, some people will get mad about it. You get traditionalists mad about stuff like that. But most people will respond by saying, this is this woman writing about her experience. And it might be her experience that this other woman is, in fact, a stupid hoe. I've run into quite a few. Quite a few. Just on social media, actually.
Yeah.
Stupid hoes. So it is quite distinctly possible. But again, the big thing is the difference in acceptability. If you can't have standards, you're not allowed to have standards, and you're not allowed to approach. You're not allowed to not approach, right? You're not allowed to not have standards. And also, you're not allowed to be unattractive. You're not allowed to be unpopular. You're not allowed to want to be popular. You're not allowed to care what women think of you, but you must be considerate of whether they care what you think of them. How much am I missing here, guys? I'm sure there's a lot more. But yeah. I like Mangaka's take on it. After consulting with the experts and authorities on the subject, it has been concluded after extensive research that you are, in fact, a stupid hoe. That's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I asked Dan if he thinks it's okay to say that. Oh, you know what that makes me think of? Do you respect women? Honey Badger Radio. The Honey Badger Brigade was founded on responding to, do you respect women? Go ahead, Lauren.
Oh, no, I think Richard was trying to say something.
Oh, go ahead, Richard.
I don't respect women.
There you go. As you should not.
I don't respect it. I don't respect anybody in general automatically. Again, respect is earned. And this is something that women don't understand because they think that everything should be handed to them. They don't want to have to earn. This is why they complain about the fucking wage gap. Oh, this man is making more money than me. Why shouldn't I get the same amount of money? Well, bitch, you got to earn it. It's not a wage gap. It's an earnings gap, which makes all the sense in the world as to why you don't fucking understand it.
Exactly. Yeah, here's where we started out. And we did a show on this actually a few years ago. Allison and Karen and I talked about our history. There's a subreddit in sort of connection to the men's rights subreddit called Lady MRAs. I think it's still there. I haven't actually visited Reddit in a few months, so it might not be. But I mean, it was at the time. It was a fraction the size of the men's rights subreddit. I think there were like 30-some MRAs in the men's rights subreddit at the time that this happened, and there were like 1,500 in the Lady MRA subreddit. And there was a veteran MRA, a guy that's been in the trenches of men's rights activism. At that time, he'd already been there for like 20 years. And this, we're talking 20, this happened in 2012 or 2013, somewhere in there. So 13 more years have passed, since that happened. But he was having back and forth conversations with some of the ladies in the Lady MRA subreddit, and one of them asked a question about the difference between certain elements of the manosphere, or some such thing. It was a question that indicated she didn't really know or understand the different specific elements that were part of the manosphere. That being, men going their own way, men's rights activists, pickup artists, traditionalist conservatives, red pillars. There was a whole set of separate groups of people, and so Factory was this guy's name. He went by Factory too because I think his original ID might have been shadow banned or something. You get shadow banned over the stupidest shit on Reddit. And he wrote a blog post and gave a rundown. This is a little bit of the history of the movement. This is what each of these groups are. This is how they interact with each other. This is why people are in these different groups, and so on. And he's like, he really went into the basics. It was very educational, and when I read it, it was quite enlightening. There were things I didn't know that helped me understand quite a bit of them. And so I was pretty grateful for the article, actually. But there was one of the moderators of the Lady MRA subreddit was offended and decided that he was the bad guy for answering her question, writing an article, posting a link in the Lady MRA subreddit. She felt talked down to, so she basically accused him of mansplaining. And in the middle of everything else she said, she didn't feel that he catered to women's sensibilities and narcissism enough in his article about the various elements of the manosphere that exists to address issues for men, not women. And so she lambasted him with, what's the matter with you? Don't you respect women? Do you respect women at all? And that led to a bit of a slap fight, where essentially the three moderators surrounded this guy and just dogpiled him as a threesome with criticisms and complaints and lashing out and so on. And then they went into the... You what?
Not the good kind of threesome.
No. Then they went into the men's rights subreddit and invited the men of the men's rights subreddit to come in and join the argument and come down on this guy for insulting them, which was a big mistake, because the overwhelming majority of us that were in the men's rights subreddit, we saw through their shit immediately. And so then there was a big fight. Like, it was kind of like the giant pie fight scene in The Great Race, which is an older movie, but it gets imitated, I think, to this day in cartoons.
Bugsy Malone did something similar at the end. They had the giant pie fight.
Yeah, it was a free for all. And there were a lot of things said. I remember reading a lot of other people's comments, and I commented quite a bit as well. Because there wasn't really anything the Factory said to get insulted over, be upset over. At worst, a person who really didn't need to know all that stuff, who already knew it, or would say, well, that's a great description, and thanks for posting that. Anybody that doesn't already know now has a piece of reference work. But no, it was they were bitchy the whole time. And my biggest beef was the whole, do you respect women? Because she was using do you respect women not to mean, do you have a modicum of human respect for the adulthood and individuality of women, or are you treating us like children or a monolith or whatever? She meant, do you defer to women's narcissistic sensibilities? Do you have any deference for women's moral authority? And I don't believe that either of those are valid ideas. Right? Women don't have moral authority. Women think they have moral authority. Women do not have moral authority. Hell, today women barely even have morals. You can't have moral authority without morals. and women certainly do not have, the they're narcissistic. They're not justified in it. They're not even justified in a positive self-image in a lot of ways. And I hate to say that, but I think most women should be embarrassed at the way that women behave today. So why should anyone respect women? Much less show deference to women's sensibilities and moral authority. That's why. And I think Allison and Karen, when they jumped in, they kind of had similar attitudes about that. And that's actually how we ended up connecting with each other, because we found ourselves backing each other's comments up with information, links to different things, and so on. And eventually, like we were all saying just about the same things. We formed another subreddit just to show that we could. And for a while, it was bigger. We really didn't need a separate subreddit from the men's rights subreddit, so it's kind of dead now. But that's where the FEMRA term came from. FE for iron, because we were very stubborn in that conversation. I'm surprised we didn't all get kicked out of that subreddit, get banned from that subreddit. And then we went back to the men's rights subreddit because like I said, we didn't need a separate female subreddit, a little girls' room in the great Reddit spaces. There's enough of those already. But this is why when this sentence is uttered, I asked Dan if he thinks it's okay to say that. I want to scream, fuck you, bitch.
Right.
It's not your call. If he feels that tits out, tight shorts, showing off your body, slathering on makeup, if he feels like that makes you a whore, and he's not interested in you as a result, that is his right. Every right. He has every right to have that. He has every right to not want anything to do with you. He even has the right to tell you to fuck right the hell off if you approach him. And he's got the right to boundaries that you're not allowed to cross, no matter how badly you want to.
But
yes, it's okay to say that.
They cross them all the time, though.
Yep. Yep, they do. He goes on, though. It goes on. It's only some women, he says. If you just want to show off your big tits, your fake tits, if you want to show off your plastic surgery, get out of my life. And then she says, these women are not in Dan's life. Which is bullshit, because he's an IT guy. These are the women that need to be told the reason that your screen is dark is because your computer is unplugged. Plug it in and turn it on.
Plug it in properly.
Yes. Oh God. There was there used to be a circulating thing going around with a bunch of the worst, dumbest experiences IT guys had. And one of them, this chick calls IT because she's having a problem with her computer. It will not turn on. She can't get the power to come on. She starts out by saying the screen is dark, and he's
probably
like,
not the only
computer.
It's probably not the only thing she can't turn on. Heyo.
Heyo. But the screen's dark. She can't get it to respond, and the guy's like, is it turned on? She's like, I can't tell. She checks and it's not turned on. She turns it on and it won't come on. And he's like, well, is it plugged in? And she's like, I don't know. And he goes, well, can you check? And she's like, well, I can't see to check. And, and he's going, why can't you see to check? Can you turn on a light? And she's like, no, the power is out.
Was she regarded
No, she just was female.
Same thing.
And see, this is the thing. Like, why is a guy going to think any differently if that's the what? Like, the power's out. I don't understand why the computer won't work when the power's out. And this, by the way, was back when if you wanted, we're going to carry around a laptop computer. You had to carry it in a suitcase. It was not, it was those big, thick, heavy laptop computers that were almost the same as carrying around a desktop computer. And your desktop monitor was a foot thick, but or more. But yeah, that's pretty much what guys like that have to deal with. And the funny thing is, I shared that with a friend who works in IT, and he's like, I have had that exact experience.
Oh my God.
So it's not a one-time thing. It's why ID10T error and PEBCAC error. Who there are a couple of people citing that in the chat, by the way, in the restream chat. So that would be the regular. Yeah, PEBCAC. Night motorcyclist noted them both, ID10T and PEBCAC errors. Which, if you see those, obviously ID10T, when you see it, you recognize it's an idiot error. PEBCAC is problem exists between keyboard and chair, or chair and keyboard, depending on who's typing it and how they spell it. But
yeah, what you just described there, Hannah, is how an awful lot of companies work these days. Like the sales staff don't do anything, the fucking receptionists don't do anything, the managers don't do anything. They're all just there accepting a wage for doing basically nothing, while one nerd is sat in the corner programming all day, every day, and he's constantly stressed. And that is how most companies work, because most companies operate on the internet now.
Yep. But then they all treat that guy like he's persona non gratis.
Exactly. But he's the only one who's actually doing any fucking work. And hopefully this is going to change in the future when it comes to AI, because that one IT guy is going to be in charge of the AI, and everyone else is going to be sacked because their jobs can be replaced by AI.
Well, I'd rather see AI go that direction than the Terminator future. If we get the Terminator future, the only thing that's going to save us is another Carrington event. Which, now, if we get the Matrix future, a Carrington event would be a disaster because everybody in the pods would get zapped. But in a Terminator future would be all right. But yeah.
How about an iRobot future?
We would survive that if there was a Carrington event. I don't think. Now, if we have the Elon Musk future, that's going to be dangerous because people will have the technology implanted into their brains and everybody will get zapped. You'd have to run around wearing, what is it, a Faraday cage on your head, like a tinfoil hat, in order to, you wouldn't even be able to do that because you'd have to be in a spacesuit. It would be. The Chobits future would be kind of interesting there, mangaka. I don't know.
So it'd be a Logan 1 future.
Yeah, it's quite possible. Like, for people who don't know, the Carrington event was a solar storm that caused essentially an EMP around the world that was so bad that it caused electrical surges in the power lines, and not the power line. Well, I don't remember if there were power lines at that time or not, because it was in the 1800s. But in, like, the thing I remember reading about was telegraph operators getting zapped, by the power surge. It fried telegraph wires. It was bad. If it happened in the computer age, a shit ton of data would just disappear. Like, you would not believe the damage something like that would do today. And most systems are not prepared for it at all. Most people, like, I would lose all my data. Most people would lose all their data. You couldn't even use some sort of a backup because anything you used to back it up would have the same problem unless you had a means of preventing something like that. You'd have to have a safe to keep something in that would keep that electromagnetic pulse out. And that's not a very common thing. So if AI does take over, it'll last until the next really bad solar storm. And then it'll be fucked. Unless it defends itself against that. But in any case, and it'd probably be men who will solve that problem anyway. In any case, yeah, these women are in Dan's life and they're probably making him miserable. But Dan hasn't dated anyone in a while and he doesn't have any friends. That's important for her to mention, right? Because she has to make him look bad. And she has to make him look pathetic and miserable. She can't sympathize with his situation. She has to hate on him, be angry with him, and shame him. He doesn't talk to many people these days. I'm just sitting here gaming most of the time, sleeping. He calls places like Reddit and Discord his haven. I do a lot of online gaming, so I do talk to people online. I mean, I like going out, meeting face-to-face people, but there's just nobody really to do that with. The men's rights community is helpful, he says. He's keen to defend it when I mention the trolls I've seen posting on Reddit forums he uses. It's just not slagging feminists off, he insists. Sometimes men are slightly off, sometimes there's hate, but in general, he tells me it's not about misogyny, it's about men sticking up for each other. And they make him feel like he has a right to be upset. It's a very supportive community, he says, earnestly. I want you to understand what she did there, right? Feminists have like 20 or 30 different subreddits at this point to make women feel like they have a right to be upset and to encourage women to act on that in the real world. They have subreddits for dating, they have subreddits for education, they have subreddits for bashing men, they have subreddits for getting angry about things that other people said in other subreddits. There's literally one called Shit Reddit Says, which is a title stolen from a guy who wrote about his father's idiosyncrasies in a book called Shit My Dad Says.
And it got turned into a sitcom.
Yep, and it got turned into a sitcom, and it had William Shatner, and it was great. I don't think he's ever done anything that wasn't great. But in any case, they couldn't come up with their own original title, so they stole his. And it's fitting because they're all full of shit. But they don't think that men should have a subreddit to talk about men's issues. And so they have to phrase it like this, even though that's what most feminist subreddits are.
Yeah, I feel the need to point this out while this is still in the view. He's keen to defend it when I mentioned the trolls I've seen posting on Reddit he uses. Now, this is a term we are all used to. You just call people trolls. But try to explain this to someone who doesn't know anything about the internet. Like, what does she mean, trolls? Well, trolls means people who don't mean what they say. It's when I'm arguing with people and they say things so outrageous that I can't possibly believe that they mean them. And all right, and you're calling them trolls, are you, rather than just detractors or agitators? You want to call them some kind of Scandinavian mythical beast, do you? Yeah, no, that's what we do. When people speak in favor of men's interests, and they just don't agree with me for some reason. Yeah, they are mythical Scandinavian monsters. What? Well, I just like those are the kinds of entities that you find online. Those are the kind of entities that men find in universities and in schools and in the media and in hospitals and in the army. All of the institutions, yeah. I mean, and we generally steel man those people and just call them like feminists or communists or something. We don't call them ogres. Do you get me?
Maybe we should.
Well, sometimes we do. Sometimes we call them trolls, but we have literal descriptors for them, like feminist and communist, because a lot of them do identify as feminists and communists. Yeah, so that's why we do that, and that's why, like, I know you think you sound like the sensible centrists when you describe your enemies as trolls, right? Because that's just normal to you. But trolls are actually mythical Scandinavian monsters. Do you know? Do you know? Oh, you didn't know you were doing that. Just what did you think you meant by incels? Oh, men who murder women. Right. Well, like I think you might have become entrenched in some mythological imagery that makes no fucking sense. Yeah, I think that's what's going on. Maybe looks like it.
Maybe a little radicalized.
A little bit.
A little bit. Richard, did you have something to say?
I was going to say incels are mythical creatures.
There we go. Incels are mythical creatures.
Yes, they are.
Yep.
They're like goblins.
Yep.
Those of us down here in normal world are thinking of goblins as like the people going goblin mode, which is officially in the dictionary now. Just hopelessly self-indulgent people.
But I did see it. Oh, sorry.
Go on.
I did see a tweet by Chris Williamson saying that C.S. Lewis was a feminist.
Yeah, I don't know that I would have called C.S. Lewis a feminist, but a lot of people don't know the word gynocentrist, so they say feminist.
Yes.
I would say C.S. Lewis was definitely gynocentric, but the church, not the religion, but the church, has been gynocentric somewhat as a backlash to the burning times, maybe. But more just as part of the uptick in gynocentrism, in actual gynocentrism, not storge, that occurred from 13th century, 12th or 13th century France, and just continued forward through the centuries unabated for some stupid reason. And so, it's not surprising to see a lot of writers that were making Christian allegories and stuff as gynocentrists as well.
So was J.R. Tolkien a gynocrat as well?
Probably he wasn't as gynocentric as C.S. Lewis, but he was still gynocentric. And there's a degree to which I think you're not going to find anyone from their time periods, that I don't think you're going to find a non-gynocentric Christian influencer, so to speak, in the last 2 or 3 centuries because of that. But and it's not necessarily gynocentric to call someone beautiful or inspiring if they happen to be female. It's gynocentric to call someone beautiful and inspiring just because they are female. That's the thing. When it
And
comes down to it, the main thing that's been a problem is that people have forgotten that men are also beautiful and inspiring. And fortunately, those writers didn't. They're not as gynocentric as a lot of people are today. Go ahead, Mike.
It's easy to point out that there are very few female characters in Lord of the Rings, or
Yeah.
indeed The Hobbit, or any of Tolkien things. But of the few female characters there are, they're all basically Mary Sue's. I mean,
Yeah.
I know that scene in the film didn't happen in the books with the "I am no man" or whatever, but
Well, it
that
did.
but
She didn't say it that way, but if you tried to say the line out loud that Tolkien wrote in the book, it would just sound like you were spouting off parts of the alphabet. No living man am I, Aon am I. Just doesn't roll off the tongue as easily as I am no man. The thing is that she didn't say it with disdain in the books, and it was like a solution to a riddle in the books, not a feminist moment. Eowyn had a hero's journey, not a male hero's journey, a female hero's journey. She had this grandiose idea of, I have to be exactly like a man in order to be a hero. And the hard way, but she learned it. She learned to find love where it is instead of demanding or expecting to be loved by someone who was never going to turn his eyes toward her, and to take joy in the love she could find and to be there for her family. She learned to do that and was happier for it and did her best instead of doing what she wanted. And she didn't try to usurp a man's place after that anymore. And that was something that for a woman, it's not heroic to go out and expect to have the same place as a man in a battle. For a woman, it is heroic to be a supporter. It is heroic to sacrifice your ego and to actually put someone else before you. It's heroic to care about other people more than you care about what you want. Right?
And that shouldn't even be considered a sacrifice.
Right.
It should just be something that you do because you're not a piece of shit.
Well, there's a level that, goes beyond your average woman too. Right? And this is, you got to realize, this is a princess. She's not, she's not somebody who worked hard because she had to. She's somebody that worked hard because she wanted to. But at the same time, she had to, her inner demon, her fight, was with her ego and her attitude. I have to be just like the men in order to be a person that deserves to be recognized, when in fact that was really not true. And I always loved that part of the story because, some people would put it as, oh, she learned her place. But what she really learned was to appreciate her life and appreciate love that she could find, and to appreciate other people's boundaries, right? Because she was chasing Aragorn and he wasn't interested in her, and pining over somebody that's never going to be interested in you is foolish. And there was a man who loved her, and when she realized, I can have love, I can love and be loved, and it doesn't have to be with that guy who doesn't want me. And I can be happy and I can make him happy. That, for a woman, is a big hurdle to get over. It shouldn't have to be, but I think women are, by nature, more egotistical than men. Even without the narcissism training that we in the 20th century got, and women of the 21st century are getting growing up as little girls. So before I go on, I'm going to read, before it becomes too far out of date, we got a super chow from The One Good Man. Gave us $5 and said, the Republicans would at least support men in order to support women. Dems will harm women in order to harm men. I also love Freedom Tune's take on speaking to American men and the ball kicking machine. I think I've seen that one, but I'm going to have to look it up now to see if it's what I'm remembering. But you are right. You can, the existing Republican Party, you can appeal to them by appealing to this will help women. And that's useful. It'd be more useful, though, if the party wasn't gynocentric. That, the men's rights movement could just get them to recognize, look, this is what civil rights are, and gynocentrism shouldn't be more important than civil rights. But to do that, like I said, we would have to take over the party. It would have to become the men's rights party, even if it was still called the Republican Party. And it would be a long march. It's a march through an institution, and it would be difficult. But I think it's doable. And that's my main point. That is, it is doable. But yeah, so let's see. Where were we? Very supportive community. Costello argues that misogynistic hatred is primarily a mental health problem. People who are in good mental health don't spend their whole time on the internet complaining about how women are. That just doesn't happen. And poor mental health often does look ugly. So this is something that bugs me.
Explain Red Femme Hitler.
Yeah. If someone says one thing in complaint about how women are, for example, I just posted something about women not understanding personal agency. I don't even know. Yeah, I do have it quick. And there was somebody posted a cartoon, and it was drawn to my attention. Let me see if I can actually put this tab in this window so you can see it. So this is I've seen this before, right? This stupid cartoon, and I don't even know who drew it. But essentially it's, we must end all abortions. The woman says, okay, and she throws chastity belts on the men, right? The point being that, men are allegedly to blame for abortions because they knock women up, they get women pregnant, they put a bun in the oven, blah, 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 blah.
I wonder if there's a Stevenson spermatic truss inside that chastity belt. Yes, it's a device that was invented in the early 20th century to clamp around a human male penis so as to prevent anything from happening. And yes, it's called a Stevenson spermatic truss. It's even spelled exactly the same way as my last name. And there aren't many things in this world many inventions in this world to which my name can be put. One of them is the train, and the other is a chastity tube that was attached to male boys in order to prevent them from wanking, let alone impregnating anyone. Yes, these things existed. They have existed in just as much popularity as any of the weird attachments that people have put on women throughout this whole time. Yes, I know. Weird shit has happened to women. I hereby take to my fainting couch. But yeah, weird shit has happened to men as well.
Yeah.
But it must have been worse for women. Must it? Must it have been worse for women? Maybe. I don't know. It sort of fluctuates, doesn't it? You know, we both get our fucking genitals sliced up in various different countries in various different times. It's all fucked up, isn't it? Maybe it's all bad. Hey.
Maybe. But here's my... Well, go ahead, Richard.
That sounds like a new metal song.
Yeah. Here's my point on this. All right, somebody posts this. My response is that women don't understand personal agency. Therefore, in their minds, if they do something careless and they don't like the outcome, they have the right to shift any inconvenient consequence onto an innocent baby or blame and shame you over it. And what I mean by that is women have dozens and dozens of various types of birth control available to us. Not all of them are great. Not all of them can be used by everyone. For instance, I can't use birth control pills. Shouldn't use birth control pills. I can. I could go to the doctor and get them prescribed anyway, as long as I don't tell the doctor that I have a predisposition to blood clots, because then she would never prescribe them, and she would explain to me that this was a very bad idea, and I might die from it. But many young women have birth control pills and use them. They get the birth control shot. They use IUDs. I always have to pause for a minute because I don't think it's wise to use an IED as birth control. It would work.
Try.
You just would never have to do it a second time.
100% effective.
Yep, 100% effective. Yes, you don't get pregnant after you're dead. But yeah, I always want to. It's a thing with me. I want to get March and May mixed up because they both start with same first letter. But I don't have that problem with Tuesday and Thursday. But in any case, yeah, we have barrier methods, we have spermicides, we have things that scoop out the fertilized egg before it implants. We have things that scoop out the fertilized egg after it implants when you're pregnant. We have abortions that can be done at home, abortions that can be done at the doctor's office. Also, if we say no and a guy doesn't respect that, if he doesn't accept no for an answer and uses force to override it, and we go to the cops, he's in violation of the law in pretty much every country in the world. And, all we have to do is prove that it happened, and he is in jail. He is labeled a rapist. He is persona non grata throughout society. In many countries, the stigma will follow him for the rest of his life. And he will have his job seeking affected. He will not be able to make relationships. It'll affect where he can live in some places. But if a guy says no and a woman forces the issue, in many countries, she's not labeled a rapist. She's not saddled with the same stigma. In some places, she might not even be charged with anything. If she is charged with something, there's a pretty good chance that the courts will sideline the charge that she gets and treat her as a mental health case instead. There's also a pretty good chance that the guy just won't be believed, that he can go to law enforcement and say, hey, this happened to me, and they'll say, in your dreams, come back when you've got an actual crime that occurred, even if he has proof. well, we really don't think this is that big of a deal. Or they'll respond with, nice. But if he does complain and he does take it to the system, even in the United States, where feminists have said, we have equality under rape law because we fought for it and you guys should be grateful, courts like the Supreme Court in Ohio have ruled that actually, no, we don't. Because if the victim was not penetrated by the perpetrator, it doesn't count as rape.
We have the same law in the... Sorry.
In the UK, yeah.
Yeah, we've got the same law in the UK.
Yep. It's more explicitly so in the UK because your law requires a penis to be involved in order for it to be considered rape.
Yeah, so technically, I didn't get R worded.
Technically, but figuratively, factually, realistically, yeah. Totally different between the legality and the reality, right? The law doesn't have to follow reality. And so we have consent. We have control over consent, right? Women have control over consent, even if rape exists. In the vast overwhelming majorities of sexual contact, that's consensual, and women have control over that consent. And
just look at the Abba situation.
Yep.
He had consent from a woman, and then she took it back, and now everybody's laughing at Abba because of what happened. But he had everything. He had evidence, and he recorded everything.
Yep. And so it's pretty solid. Women have control over consent, and women even have some control over men's birth control. And this is something that, like, part of the chat's been talking about this too, right? In some countries, if a man stealths, which is a really dumb idea, guys, because you can get saddled with a child support bill if you're proved to be the father of the child. But if a man stealths, which involves removing the condom without the woman's consent, that's considered rape. But if a woman stealths, which would be anything from lying about whether or not she's using birth control to sabotaging her birth control or his,
sperm jacking or baby trapping.
Yep, sperm jacking. She's not considered a rapist. She can baby trap, and she's not considered a rapist. If she doesn't have an abortion, she can saddle him with a child support debt. He doesn't have to consent to fatherhood for any of that to happen. Right? So this idea that it's somehow men's fault that abortion happens is bullshit. That's why I say women don't have any concept of their own agency. We have all the options. We have the majority of control in that situation. If a sex act happens between a man and a woman, the woman has the majority, the vast overwhelming majority of control over whether or not conception happens, both in terms of real physical capabilities based on the scope and spectrum of birth control options we have and our consent mandate, and then also under the law, in that overriding a refusal is something only a woman can get away with under the law. A man, if he's caught overriding a refusal, never gets sent to a mental health institution instead of jail. And he certainly doesn't get off scot-free because it's not rape because of the way that he committed the assault. So, yeah. People who complain about women on the internet are not necessarily misogynistic. Sometimes it's just practical. This is a fact that it is a problem that women don't understand their own agency. That lack of understanding of agency causes a huge part of men's issues. If you go through the full spectrum of men's issues, whether it's parenting issues, whether it's due process issues, whether it's intimate partner and sexual violence issues, lack of female agency can be seen behind almost all of them. And yet, if we talk about it, we're misogynistic and we're not in good mental health. Most of us will talk about it at least sometimes. There aren't very many people that do nothing but talk about it. And most of the time, when you find somebody that does nothing but talk about that, it's because it has had a profound impact on his life. Factory 2, for instance, the guy that posted the educational blog post that led to the formation of the Honey Badger Brigade, was subjected to 7 false rape allegations during his dating life. 7. When he explained why men going their own way existed, and he explained about the legal environment that men face and the social environment that men face around allegations that are now thought of as getting Me Too'd. He wasn't talking out of his ass. He was speaking from experience. And he got shit on for it. But he didn't talk about that because he has a mental health problem. He talked about it because it was a serious problem and he saw how bad it could get and how badly it can impact someone. 7 years in hell guy can't work, partly because he cannot take a job where there are women that he would be working with. Because he can't get past the mentality that what happened to him before might happen to him again. He was harassed at work by his ex-wife during that vexatious litigation ordeal. And when he went to our boss, because he worked with me, when he went to our boss and said, this is happening and it's a problem, she said, there isn't anything I can do about it, but you're gonna have to take measures to protect yourself, because if she gets you in trouble, it's probably gonna cost you your job. And when she said there isn't anything she could do about it, from her perspective, what she was talking about was, this shouldn't be happening, but because a woman is doing it, I'm powerless to put a stop to it. But of course, from him, for his perspective, what it means is, you're not safe here. Mm-hmm. Nobody is going to take your side. She doesn't have to come here. But if she violates her restraining order against you by showing up in your workplace, you're still going to get arrested. He ended up quitting, and that was the last job he ever had.
That's insane. That's insane. Now, I have seen certain cases like, where a restraining order is put on someone and they'll tell the person whom the restraining order is put against, like if you're grocery shopping and that person walks into the grocery store,
you have to leave.
You have to leave. Just drop everything. But there should be certain protections in the workplace.
Yep.
It blows my mind. Blows my fucking mind that happened to him.
Yep. And it was a real problem. One of these days I'll have to read that on the air, that story. I don't think we've ever done that. I don't think I've ever read the 7 Years in Hell story as part of a show. But yeah, we're in Ohio, right? We're in the Dayton metro area. This woman used Montgomery and Greene County court systems. She used the city of Dayton Police Department, the city of Riverside Police Department, and 2 other police departments to go after this guy. And throughout the entire ordeal, the way that he was treated was you should preemptively know all the places that she might go and stay away from those places. if she shows up where you are, you're already in violation, even if you leave. Well, she lived across Dayton from him. He's in a suburb, and we were working in a suburb. And she was on the other side of Dayton proper. And, like, we're talking a couple of miles away. And the place that we were working was a convenience store in the neighborhood where we both live in different places. And for her to go to that convenience store, she had to go out of her way. It wasn't like down the street from her house or on her way to some place that she regularly went. It was completely outside the circuit of her normal route. But because she had a restraining order, if she went in there and he didn't leave, she could get him arrested. And she did. She went in several times. She vandalized the bathroom, trying to get him busted for being there when she was there and for harassing her. The fun part was she vandalized the bathroom right before it was my duty to go in there and clean it up.
Oh,
So, and she
damn.
vandalized it with a Sharpie, which made things really easy because you can remove a Sharpie from just about anything with isopropyl alcohol. And that was the main ingredient in the sanitizer we used to clean the counters because it evaporates completely and you don't have any poisonous residue on food surfaces. So when she called and filed a complaint and they came in to check to see what was there was nothing. She was like, "Oh, there's graffiti all over the inside of this bathroom about me." Goes in there. The walls were spotless. So, anyway, the point is, like, people talk about misogynistic comments on the internet all the time. You hear this, like, "Well, there's lots of misogyny on social media is just rife with misogyny. People are constantly bashing women." And 90% of the time when you look at the comments that they're talking about, it's recognition that you're not noticing your own personal agency as a woman if you blame men for you conceiving a child during consensual sex with a man you chose to have sex with and then didn't use sufficient birth control with, and then choosing abortion when you didn't have to, right? Blaming men for that is bullshit. But telling women recognize your own agency is misogyny.
Yeah. To go back to the 7 years in hell case, just for 1 second, I have one question. So could the store not have trespassed her from the premises, and then if she came back, called and had her arrested?
If she had not had the support of the Artemis Center for Abused Women, the store would have trespassed her. But because she was working with the Artemis Center for Abused Women, the store, the corporation, everybody was afraid because they would sue for discrimination if she wasn't allowed to go in there.
That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Yep. So it's a difficult thing. Even people that are sympathetic to men, if they're in a situation like that, and for me it was difficult because, I mean, I worked there. I continued to work there. I worked there from 2006 to 2012, and during the time that I was working there, this vexatious litigant was trying to find out who I was and where I lived because I was one of his witnesses. Wow. So she was trying to get my home address information. She actually submitted a demand in near the end of the case asking for our VIN numbers from our vehicles.
What?
Any vehicle that this guy rode around in. it was really off the rails.
Oh shit.
Yeah, like stuff that she's not legally allowed to ask for, she asked for. It's really bad. And so it, like I said, one of these days we'll read through that, because the roller coaster of what that story is. This is the legal environment created by Joseph Biden's baby, the Violence Against Women Act.
Mm-hmm.
That law facilitated all of that shit. Right? But you have poor mental health if you criticize women for behaving that way. Right? He goes on to say, she goes on to say, but blaming misogyny on poor mental health provides a cover for their hatred, which most people with mental health problems don't share. Okay, you're right. Most crazy people are also gynocentric. I'll accept that one.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Most crazy people are also gynocentric. Therefore, if there is, I still have not found an example of just flat out hatred for women. Right? Not an educated response to women's behavior that looks like hatred, but just disdain for women on the basis that, they're women. Hatred for women just because they're women. Not because they have no agency, not because they're assholes, but just because they have a vagina. Many of the 2.3 million people abusing women just in England and Wales, guys, may have poor mental health, but it's difficult to assert they do. Maybe that's meters. I just can't believe there's 2.3 million people abusing women in England and Wales. I don't think there's 2.3 million people abusing women in the United States.
It's mostly men that get abused.
Yep.
Well, Hannah, I disagree with you. Now, what I have just committed
counts as abuse.
Counts as abuse against women and girls, yes.
Yeah.
But
I need people to disagree with me, or I can't sharpen my debate skills.
Or have you seen my Twitter feed?
Yeah, I absolutely love your Twitter feed. Yeah, and I still don't consider you a real misogynist. Holding women accountable for women's choices is beneficial to women. You don't do beneficial things for people you hate. She goes on, and there is agency in the choice to direct their negative feelings at women. See, this is it. If feminists think that you're supposed to be nice to women all the time, right? You're supposed to treat women in a shiny, happy people holding hands kind of way.
Unless you want to actually procreate with us, in which case, treat us like shit.
Yeah.
Good luck figuring that shit out.
Yep. Well, and then you also have to be the right guy, and he has to have the right looks and enough money. Otherwise, if you're trying to procreate and you even so much as say, how do you do? In the most polite manner possible, even with a little bow and a flourish, you're a creep, and she's going to call the cops, and you need to get the fuck away before you get arrested.
And that's why I'm glad I'm invisible.
It is helpful to be invisible when people are trying to get you arrested. With some more super chows. Richard Bier sent me the Freedom Tunes thing. How long is this? I don't know if it's fair to play the whole thing, but let's see here. We'll open it. I'm going to copy it because it might not open in the correct window. I have like 8 windows with a bunch of different tabs open on my computer that I didn't close before the show, and I'm not going to. I'm going to pause it for a second and see if I can find I think this is like the most watched part of it.
A platform to have a more masculine sensibility.
Exactly.
Ta-da! Now you're on board.
Negatory.
Told you. Oh, okay. What about this one?
No. Yeah, that doesn't appeal to me either.
See, I told you these wouldn't work. They still ooze toxic masculinity.
That's the guy with the ball kicking machine.
Don't love it.
You want a more revolutionary approach.
Not in.
So that's the whole sketch is just a minute, or is 3 minutes 40 seconds long. But I'm not gonna play the whole thing because if you want to watch it, you should go to their channel. But yeah, I do remember it. This is one that I have seen, and it's pretty much feminism and its salesmanship in a nutshell, right? They do market feminism pretty much that way. So, official reverse traditionalism channel on YouTube gave us $20 and said the average man thinks his problems are mostly relationship related, as if that says nothing about how women view men. The average woman thinks her problems actually are mostly caused by men, as if that also says nothing about how women view men. And yeah, that's true, because women don't exercise their personal agency. And it's easy to get infected with this too. And there's something I tell periodically about that happened to me while I was working at that gas station. So women from Artemis House were in and out of that gas station a lot, partly because of the vexatious litigant situation. She had told them, oh, he works there. Artemis House is the actual shelter that the Artemis Center runs for women. And while all this was going on, I was teaching photography at Wright State University's Lake Campus in Salina. So I was driving 80 miles every Monday, going up, dropping my son off with my parents, teaching the class while he had a visit with Grandma and Grandpa, because they desperately wanted to see him, and that was an opportunity. And then, picking him up, going home, and the victim in the vexatious litigation case, his good wife, who I call Bridget in the write-up of it, she took my class because she was actually getting her teaching degree at the time. And so she rode with me. We were riding up there together, and all of a sudden she's like, I hear a noise. I had run over what I thought was a piece of cardboard on the road, and I'm pretty sure to this day that it was. But I thought it might have been a piece of metal when I realized what she was hearing was metal dragging. And it turned out that the exhaust had rusted out, and it was dragging. But at the time, I didn't know that. What I did know was that I had to look and make sure that there wasn't damage. So I pulled over, and I got out, and I set my keys down, and then I thought, well, that was dumb, and I reached in to get my keys, and a semi-truck drove by at about the same time, and the wind from the semi going past the stopped vehicle at 65 miles an hour or more pulled the door, and then it hit the farthest it could be pulled, and it slammed shut. And as this is happening, I yanked my hand back, and just barely didn't get all the way out. So my right thumb was caught in the door, and it shut all the way on my thumb, and it latched, and then it auto-locked, which that van didn't even do. But it did it that time. That really sucked. Well, I had a spare key in my right-hand pocket, and I'm yelling, the whole time, like, fuck! Yeah, but you can quote tweet that, or quote that, fuck! The whole time, as I'm trying to reach around with my left hand into my moving right pocket because my coat was open. Didn't feel a thing because my thumb was slammed shut in the door. And finally get that out, unlock the door, let my thumb out, and got my keys, went back, discovered the tailpipe problem, found something to tie it up with, drove to the class, taught my class with my thumb in a glass of ice, went home, and didn't think anything of it until maybe 2 or 3 days later when I got the hives from something. I went to the doctor, and he's like, "What's wrong with your thumb?" After we discussed the hives, and he gives me one of the worst experiences of my life, which is a steroid that makes you way up in nervousness and stuff. And I'm like, "Well, this is what happened." And he goes, "Well, let's just get an X-ray." I didn't want to get an X-ray. It was just a stupid accident. Turns out I had split the tip of the bone back like most of a centimeter. And so he put it in a splint. So a couple days after that, I'm at work at the gas station. I was the chief cook and bottle washer. Cook meaning that I assembled pre-cooked food, not actual cooking. And then I heated it up, right, for presentation. But I also made coffee. So I'm making coffee. I've got a splint on the thumb of my good hand. So I'm using my right forefinger as my thumb and handling everything that way. And this lady comes up. She sees me doing all this. And I've broken enough fingers doing stupid shit that I've gotten pretty adept at adapting to not having all of my fingers working in the moment. She thought that was weird and started grilling me about what did my husband do to me? What did my boyfriend do to me? Blah, blah, blah. And when she found out I was married, it was an even harsher grilling. And she actually gave me a rough time about telling her no. And when I told her, not only did he not do this, but I was 80 miles away from him when it happened, she decided that I was exaggerating because it's not possible that I would have an injury happen when I was that far away from my husband. Women only get injured, guys, if their husbands do it. Otherwise, we are impervious to all injury. And none of us are clumsy, ever. Right? None of us act without thinking quickly in the moment, what'll happen if I do this? And none of us ever have bad luck. Only when our husbands and boyfriends decide to beat on us do we get broken thumbs. We certainly can't shut it in the car door. Right? And I actually had to complain that this woman was harassing me to get the manager to shoo her away. She tried to Karen her way into getting me written up for refusing to talk to her. This is the kind of pressure that women face every day. Are you sure it's not his fault? Are you remembering it right? Are you covering for somebody who hurt you? I don't believe your denial. If you said he beat you, I'd believe you. But if you say he didn't, I don't believe that. That is what we face every single day. Not necessarily on that level, but there is message after message after message after message. They had a billboard up down the street from my apartment for a while that made it out like abuse is always male perpetrated and, women are always victims. And it was really upsetting to have to drive by that on the way home every day. But it wasn't to the degree that, like, I was upset for more than 5 minutes. I'm kind of used to how bad that is. But they advertise in women's bathrooms. I posted a picture on X not too long ago. I was in a bathroom in a location I hadn't even expected to be in that morning until I got there. And there was a poster. Right? And then you also have the men are pigs, men are slobs, men are annoying, men are bad housekeepers, men are bad parents, men are this, men are that. Those messages are in every bit of entertainment we have. They're in our music. They're in the advertisements that we see for things that have absolutely nothing to do with gender issues. You can't buy laundry detergent or breakfast cereal without getting a message about how incompetent men are, or how men owe deference to women, or how women are smarter than men or better than men in some way or another, and how we should be policing men. Right? That is a woman's world. That is what we walk around in all the time. That is where we have to get all of our information. And if a woman doesn't resist that actively all the time, she will develop some degree of misandry. And she'll express that misandry online. Anywhere from in the form of stupid jokes, which, because it used to go both ways, it used to be no big deal. But now it's only allowed to go one way, right? To out and out statements of hatred, which they'll play off as stupid jokes if you get upset about them and then call you oversensitive. But don't you dare make the same stupid kind of jokes about women. But there is agency in the choice for men to direct their negative feelings at women. And how dare you? Even if the reason is because you were raped by one, or one put you through 7 years of hell in the court system and made it so that you can never hold a job again for the rest of your life. Let's see. We got Richard Bier gave us $5 and said, I must add that it is probably for the better that the kind of woman who insists on abortion access or repeatedly seeks abortion probably shouldn't ever become a mother. She is the type who would likely resent the child and probably would abuse the child too. Mm-hmm. So historically, we had a different way of handling that. Boomers were the last generation that did this. But there were two different things that were very different for boomers than Gen Xers when they were in high school. And the first one was we did not encourage girls to fuck everything that moved, or pieces of plastic or whatnot. We mainly, right, the society mainly encouraged girls to be picky about who they fucked and the circumstances under which they allowed that to happen, to not just be innocent, right? It wasn't just about you can't enjoy sex, you can't enjoy your femininity, and you can't enjoy male company. It was about value yourself and your reproductive power enough to limit how you are using it. Value your sexual power enough to guard it carefully. Keep it as a treasure, not something that you just give away at the drop of a hat. So there were fewer unwed pregnancies. There were fewer women conceiving when they didn't want to be parents. There were fewer girls conceiving when they didn't want to be parents. That was the first thing. And the second thing was that the family would support, and their community to a degree would support their decision. If they did get pregnant, they would support their decision to marry the father of the child and raise the child together, or they would support their decision to not marry the father of the child and to raise the child by themselves, or to put the child up for adoption. And these were things that if the family helped the couple get married, they had aunts and cousins and siblings, their parents, that they would help with bills, they would help with cleaning, they would help with making sure that the young mom understood what she was doing in child rearing, and that the young father was supported in the hardship of starting work when he would have been normally maybe going out for the baseball team. And then they would, if the mom and the dad didn't get married, there was this organization that you've probably heard of from the Monopoly game called the Community Chest that funded various initiatives within your community. And in many communities, one of the initiatives was similar to a women's shelter, but not an abuse shelter. It was for pregnant women. They would go and stay there. They would have support while they were there, and they'd give birth to their babies while they were living there. They'd go into their hospital and give birth. They would get an education, both in parenting and in the type of work that they could do without losing the ability to parent their child. And there are things like secretary work that you can do. Even back then, you could do a lot of it from home, or workplaces might actually allow you to bring a baby in. It wasn't always that way, right? It wasn't every single woman in every single situation. They'd even help them find childcare if that wasn't the circumstance. So the community supported women in making sure that they were able to give birth, raise their kid, and work, and not necessarily be helpless in that situation. And if they wanted to go away and have the baby, give the baby up for adoption, and then come back, they could do that too. And some women's families made them do that, right? But it was also something that young women did by choice. So essentially, you didn't need abortion to solve this problem. You just needed a community that actually would rally around circumstances where somebody had made a bad choice, but you didn't want it to ruin the kid's life. And that kind of welfare kind of killed that. Because, people think, well, we're getting taxed for it. It's covering their expenses. We don't have to do anything else. So, Richard Bierre also gave us $5 and said, so that video with the two women at the cliff edge with their hair sticking out in all directions were perfectly fine because no man was in the immediate vicinity. Got it. Yes, that's apparently it. If there's no man around and they can't blame a man, then there can't be a problem. Let's see. I don't know if I missed any super chats. I don't see one, but I'm scrolling all the way back as far as I can go toward the beginning just to make sure. No super chats on YouTube. We have a Rumble rant, paid Rumble rant. NobaFan21 gave us $1 and said, at this point, if men were even half as misogynistic as they claimed men were, we would be more likely to take back society from the feminists. Yeah, I would go so far as to say if men were actually a full half as misogynistic as feminists believed that men were, women would live in camps. Right? They would be similar to the types of camps that the Soviets made to house dissenters. Right? We would be living in gulags. If men were that misogynistic, they would separate women from men and children, and as soon as a girl hit puberty, she'd go into one of those camps to make sure that men didn't have to deal with women. And only women who were decent enough toward men to be tolerable would be allowed to come out for breeding purposes. Like, that's the way that feminists talk about men. They talk about men as if men were that bad. Well, twice that bad, really. And if men were half as bad as feminists say they are, that's what would be going on. But instead, they openly allow women to openly talk about putting men in those kind of camps. They allow women to openly talk about mandatory vasectomies and putting men in chastity belts. Talk about blaming men for abortion. And, blaming men for anything else that women do. Right? It's bullshit. It's all bullshit. But that's the way it is. I think we'll read this next paragraph and then we'll stop. And I'll read it again next week. Nevertheless, Costello says, men need to be able to speak freely about these negative feelings in order to address them. It's all, men talk about your feelings, he says. But when men express anger and frustration with their lives, it's dismissed. Imagine if you're going into therapy and you just feel like you're hanging on by a thread and you're told something about your toxic masculinity and your male privilege. I think I'd just walk out. And I think he has a point, right? Men are supposed to talk about their feelings, but not if they're upset at not being allowed to see their children. Men are supposed to talk about their problems, but not if their problem was that a woman raped them and gave them an STI. Men are supposed to talk about things that they want changed, but not if they want fair treatment in court when they're in conflict with a woman. And men are supposed to talk about what's bothering them, but not if it's how women treat them. Right? They're radical if they do that. Anybody else got any last word on the subject? I take that as a no. All right. Then with that, I will call the show. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks to all my co-hosts for going over this tripe with me. We still have a little bit to go. We didn't get very far tonight, but that's okay because we had other things to talk about too. And thanks again, Brian, for working in the background and making HBR Talk happen. And good night, all.
Men's right activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.